I guess it got tired of waiting. It must have figured that I wasn't going to go into that closet, that I wasn't getting off my bed, because my closet door creaked farther open. Milo sat upright and was gently pushed out of the closet. He slumped over right by the edge of the closet's entrance. Again, I believe I saw something, and I saw something causing Milo out of the dark. Maybe it was its arms, hands, and it was something. It was oddly quick and bent in unnatural ways, like a knitted tube, like the closet's confines couldn't contain whatever was within. I can see it when I think about it. When I try to remember it, I try to describe it. But I just can't. It's almost as if I'm not allowed to do it. With Milo sitting outside the closet being placed there, it was clear to me there was something in that fucking closet. It wasn't my imagination, it was really there. I figured that tipped me over the edge because despite that fear, despite being terrified enough not to do that things in that way, have managed to shout a scream for my parents. When I heard their steps racing against the wooden floors, I took a chance and leapt out of bed, dashing for my bedroom door. As I opened it, I was met with the sight of my worried parents. I wasted no time in telling them I saw a monster in my closet and it took Milo. Despite me remaining fearful, my parents' nerves eased as they figured nothing serious, and that was wrong. I had never done anything like that, screaming for them in the night. I'm guessing they were glad it was just some figment of my imagination, maybe just some bad dream, but it wasn't. As my dad picked me up, the two of them walked into my room. I hadn't noticed it, but the closet door had been closed and Milo was placed atop my bed, like he was there all along. When my mother grabbed my teddy bear, she told me, in a reassuring tone, as if I couldn't see it for myself, "Thomas, Milo's right here." I was so fixed on what I had seen, I didn't recall going to sleep. It wasn't a dream. I know it wasn't, and I'm sure as she wasn't staying in that room, and not even with Milo. I don't remember why, I just knew. I didn't want to be around him. Maybe it was because he would be a constant reminder of what I saw. Maybe I didn't know. I wasted no time in reaffirming what I saw, recounting every detail as best I could. It was so clear to them that I wasn't going to be able to sleep anytime soon, especially by myself. My parents took me to their room, and I opted to leave Milo behind. I didn't know what to think at that time. I just knew I felt safe, protected. As we went back to their bedroom, they nested me in between them. To reassure me, my dad said, "Don't worry, Thomas. You are not gonna see any monsters in here." And Mom went on to tell me good night, Thomas. For a few moments all seemed fine. Despite that, I couldn't help but stay up for a bit. I didn't dare move, let alone look around. I didn't want to risk seeing it again. I closed my eyes, telling myself, and that maybe, just maybe, it was just in my imagination. I found comfort in the snores of my parents. My worries were eased by it. Knowing that they could sleep, I felt that maybe, and I could too. That movement of reprieve was short-lived. I was waken up by the shuffling of my dad. His movements led to him pinching the skin on my arm, and we all sat up. "Jacob, look, Jacob, just look at that," shouted Mom, as she frantically pointed at the closet door. My dad switched the lamp on and rubbed his eyes. As he looked at where Mom had pointed, their closet door was easing open. It was slow, so slow that you might have been thought it was just your imagination. Except, after a while, it was clear that it wasn't. You'd be sure to notice the growing distance at some point. We all watched in silence as it did. My dad was quick to get his gun out of the nightstand. He must have assumed it to be a burglar or something. He aimed at the closet door and said, "You better come out slowly. If I gotta go in there, then it ain't gonna be pretty. The door abruptly stopped and creaked loudly in response. Those pale managed arms bared itself again, and this time it again placed Milo just outside the closed door. My parents froze for a moment. I figured they couldn't believe it, and I figured that the thoughts racing in their mind led them to freeze. After it placed that teddy bear down, I started to look toward my mom. I could have swore I heard her whisper my name. I had thought she intended to question me to confirm that this was what I was talking about. Except when I turned to my answer to my mom, she wasn't even looking at me and her mouth was closed. With widened eyes, she stared at that closet. She didn't say my name. We all looked at one another for a moment. After we all heard loud shots rung in my ears. My dad had emptied his gun into that closet. We didn't hear anything or see anything happen. It was just eerily quiet, and it would have been for some time had it not been for my mom. Jacob, where is the window? My dad was a bit dumbfounded by the question. He looked to where she pointed again. There was just a wall there. My dad cautiously got out of the bed and stared at that barren wall. He paused for a moment, no doubt wondering on what just happened. It's like he expected that window to come back, or questioned if there was even a window to begin with. It was only when he had noticed the bathroom door vanish too. Did he react? Well, I'm not sure. I would have done the same. I don't think I would have been able to grasp all that alone except what I was seeing. But they have did it. My mother had carried me, and together we all ran out for that room. And I didn't catch on then. But later on in life I realized it. Our exists were slowly disappearing. As we navigated through our house as rooms were suddenly just vanishing. When he dashed down the stairs, we all looked to the front door, just just whisk itself out of reality. I mean, it's what I saw, and I didn't blink. It was just there, like it should have been, and in that same second position, and it was just gone. My mom and dad heard something on the stairs and looked back up. The sounds of multiple steps raced loudly down the stairs. I didn't get a chance to see it. My dad had snatched me from mom and ran toward the living room window. It hadn't disappeared like the rest yet. As we ran, I heard my mom's rising scream get silenced by a few sickening cracks. The sound of bones snapping echoed throughout the darkness. Each break was louder. It had lingered in my ears and froze my blood. When Dad brought me to that window, he threw me as hard as he could do it. I was confused and scared at that time. My dad had this horrid look on his face, riddled with fear and desperation. Did he know? I mean, how did he know to do that? Could it have been luck? I'm not sure if I should be thanking my dad or cursing him. When I flew out that window, I saw the darkness swallow my dad. More crunches of bone followed his agonizing scream. His face was peeling and stretched in a violent way. I had closed my eyes out of fear. When I hit the ground, I opened them and screamed. I was lying in the grass with a broken arm and a few cuts. I hadn't realized my injuries. I didn't really feel them. I mean, I felt the subtle stings from the cuts, but not the arm. Maybe I was too fixed on the window or just being tossed through. I mean, I looked at the window and it was just broken. I looked for any sign of my dad, but he wasn't there. I mean, my dad wasn't there. It was dark, but I could still barely make out living room. I could see the shadows, silhouettes of the furniture, or at least I thought I did. I'm sure I did, because not long after there was a moment when I couldn't see them. It was there. I realized it was still there, and that I needed to get away. When I tried to lift myself, it was then I realized that my arm had been broken. It was broken in multiple spots along my arm, bent and twisted into an odd ringed shape. My entire was disfigured. I grew uneasy just looking at it. It was like arm had twisted and looped like a clay noodle that had hardened. I had stepped back and started running toward the street with tears running down my face. I would have ran further, to somewhere if I hadn't heard my house's front door open. I could have helped but slow and look to the back. It too was shadowed by an abyss-like darkness. The opening door triggered the motion light on the port's overhang. I should have been able to see inside, to see what was there, but I couldn't. When I got ready to run out, it did something. Terribly disfigured versions of my mom and dad peeked from the front door's darkness and beckoned me to come closer. They had been seriously fucked up, and it was using them. You might have expected me to have been happy or to run toward them, but I didn't. My parents sobbed and called as though they were being rapted. Those weren't my parents. It could have been, or maybe, through all that agony, they were there, calling for me. I don't know what to do anymore. I have been in and out of foster care homes ever since, still dealing with that thing. The thing is, no one else sees it. I mean, it can't just be me. Me and my parents saw it too. There is no way we all could have just imagined it together. It keeps coming still, and every fucking time it shows, it's whatever it is, arrives from darkness and is constantly reaching for me, calling me with their faces and their voices, and each time it gets closer. I fear that soon it won't be confined to the darkness it resides in. I fear that it'll reach a point where it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. Know that I was here. Ghost tried to kill my friend. This was one of the worst experiences I have ever had. I hope someone can use this and stay safe out there. I have always been able to see entities I have called demons and spirits since I was a kid. I see demons or evil spirits or entities as black shadow figures that to me look like flourished. I have developed my skills over the years of how to see and understand these things. I was living in a homeless shelter at the time. It was religious based and had a drug rehabilitation program for convict, lots of bad people. I would constantly see demons following people. I hated it. If a shadow figure is following you, it's a very bad thing. I was in a program for homeless men that would help us by providing a workplace that would fund the meals and housing as well as provided food and local resources to help us get things like health insurance. It was separated from the general population homeless that were housed across the hall in an open bay. One night I was woken up by an evil spirit. I sat up in my bunk and tried to focus. It wasn't inside the room, just staring at my body in the bunk across from me. I knew it had very bad intentions. I was on edge. The evil spirit wanted to hurt my friend, and I could feel it. My stomach dropped. I said to myself, please don't wake up, just keep sleeping. I had to get that thing away from him, so I jumped out of my bunk and sat right in front of my friend's bunk. I closed my eyes and began to focus. I needed to get this thing away from us as soon as possible. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I sat and began to pray. I told the spirit, you are not welcome here. I call now on the name of God and His name and His Son, Jesus Christ. It screamed, sounded like a loud screeching that cut right to the bone. I loved it smiling. This was nothing new. I command you to leave now. In the name of God, bless this room and cast out any evil here. My eyes shut, I focused deeply into my prayer. The spirit came up to my chair and stood in front of me. I opened my eyes and looked directly at its head. That's right, I said. You got no power here. I dare you, and I'm saying to you. It shot over to my side. I looked over my shoulder to it. Go on, I said. I knew that demons in the Bible aren't allowed to have physical contact with humans, and possessions is very taboo. It only ends with the demon's demise, so they rarely do it. It placed its hand directly above my shoulder, like it was trying to grab me and possess me, but it stopped about 4 inches from me. I knew it couldn't do it. I was protected, and it knew it. I focused again and closed my eyes. I started praying again, more directly. I commanded the spirit to leave the room in the name of Had, and as it worked. Now the spirit was in the hallway. It was pacing up and down the hallways back and forth. I stated smiling again and taunting it. You can't come in. You can't come in here, I said. The spirit shut down the hallway. I could feel where it was going. It went down the hall to the man's restroom and stopped at the last stall and seemed to be waiting. That's weird, I thought. Then out of nowhere, my friend shot up in bed. I have never seen anyone wake up like this. He went from dead asleep to sitting straight up in 1 second. It scared the crap out of me. He woke up with eyes as wide as the moon. I was shocked. Why did he just wake up? He jumped off his bunk. I was shaking in fear. Alarm bells were blaring in my head. I had to tell him to stop. But no way. How could I? This dude would think I'm insane. Oh hey, there is an evil spirit in the restroom, so don't go down there. Yeah, that's right. And I couldn't say that. He left the room and walked down the hall. My heart was beating out of my chest. This thing is going to kill this guy. I didn't know what to do. I jumped off my bunk and ran toward the hall. As I broke the thread hold and I slammed into the body. And he just glanced at me and jumped back in his bunk. I was so relieved he came back. Thank God. The next day I talked to my buddy about what happened, and when I got to the restroom part he stopped me. Wait, which stall? He said, and there was end. Last night I woke up from a dead sleep. I didn't know why. I had to pee, I guess, so I went to the restroom. He looked into my eyes. When I went to the restroom, I went to the very last stall and sat on the toilet, dressed, just sitting. I started hearing voices last night as I was sitting there. I was going to slit my fist and kill myself last night. The voices were convincing me and I wanted to do it, but I don't know why I didn't. Thank you for telling me. I believe you. The whole morning I saw a black shadow filling him. It wanted him to death. I told him, please, whatever you got planned for today, change it up. That thing for last night is trying to hurt you. Please be aware of your surroundings and be careful. That night one of the other guys came up to me. Hey, did you hear what happened to your friend yesterday? Yes, what? My buddy had gotten hit by a truck and broke his leg. I felt awful, like it was my fault. I warned him, I said. My eyes began to water. Then from behind I hear, hey, it's my buddy. Dude, what the fuck you were doing and what had happened? He told me that he had an appointment that day and he was on the way there, riding a bike when he felt like someone was watching him, so he turned around. He said he saw what he could only describe as a shadow of a person driving this truck, and it was heading right for him. He went into the sidewalk and began to run for his life. The truck cut straight for him, dashing through street signs and trees. My friend said he wasn't fast enough. He got hit. The driver backed up and fled. My buddy got picked up and taken to the hospital. I was in tears. I'm so sorry, man. Please forgive me. You saved my life, man. And thank you for everything. I just sobbed. Okay is all I said. I knew it was my fault somehow. He was okay after a few weeks and some crutches. I never forgot him after that day, and I swear I would never stay quiet again.